This is turn 42 of I equipped my heavy crossbow. I received the first flesh eater that I'm purchasing from Gath, so that's going to help a lot, and it's right in time too, because I'm finishing my first golem. My Tomb Oracle here is successful in its raiding. My big ol' blob here of blind fighters and shard wights are similarly successful in marching across the water there to take that province. This thing has a story event. Let's take a look at that. That is, a local dryad. So this basically means that a nature mage in the province that is just, wandering around there has a chance of meeting the dryad and getting a bonus to nature magic. So that's cool. I'll probably want to get one of my N1 guys there if I get the chance. Here I retake the province from the barbarians, no problem. My Tomb Oracle here is successful in his raiding as well, and now he's holding down this throne fortress, so definitely nice. I'm going to be moving my actual army on top of the throne fort here, so they're going to potentially be able to start breaking down the walls, and given that I'm basically going to be taking on this fortress, and I have a bunch of these H3 Tomb Oracles here, I'm basically starting to look towards winning. Pythium, like I mentioned, I thought that he was just trying to lure me in to hit me with a bunch of assassins or some counter to my Tomb Oracles en masse. He really just isn't. He's just falling back, and he's not counter-raiding me very effectively. I'm starting to think that he's basically just getting demoralized. Here in the Shadowlands, I'm able to successfully capture that province with my raiding party. My one guy here was basically just set to retreat. He was just like one lonely little alchemist holding the thing down on his own. So he wasn't like really going to hold on to that fortress, even though Pythium only broke it with just like, one commander. His was not set to retreat and mine was, so yeah. Here, this is just my small raiding party. These guys have been like MVP. They've taken on a bunch of provinces. I don't expect to be able to take this province over here because I know that Pythium still has a bunch of crossbowmen somewhere in this area. I'm not sure exactly where. Here, Pythium was able to actually successfully take that water province with his Tribalist Sacreds, since even a large amount of PD just isn't going to do much when the units involved can't even damage it. Here, my Tomb Oracle is defeated, but, I mean, you have to put defeated in, like, major quotes there, because while he did lose the fight, he was able to do a ton of damage to these, he was able to, like, do a ton of damage to that army there. Let me take a look at that. Yeah, so he killed 4 of the full-size Hydras, 18 of the Hydra hatchlings, and presumably, Pythium is also casting a bunch of battlefield spells, so he's burning through a couple of gems as well. Yeah, Foul Vapors, Flame Ward. Yeah, he's actually burning a bunch of gems here. And Bobby the Bopper's script will look very familiar. He's essentially doing the exact same thing that all the other Tomb Oracles are. So the province defense gets to him first, and he is not worried at all about that. Even the lance charges just don't really hurt him. And we've already sort of seen how this sort of fight's going to go. Nothing that Pythium has here is doing any damage to my Tomb Oracle. But his full-size Hydras here are having their fear effect, so even though he does have Valor, which gives him increased morale, even at 26 morale, that's only going to hold up for so long. So as you can see, his morale's going down over time from those fear auras. And he is actually taking morale checks because he is taking damage. So his morale has been lowered from its amazing heroic, like 26, all the way down to 14 already. So a Tomb Oracle without this particular heroic ability would probably be, even further down and potentially in danger of routing. However, because he has it, he's able to continue punching through these Hydras for an extended period of time. yeah, with quickness, he's two-shotting these hydras. And as you can see, he's definitely in no risk of dying, even if his morale is low enough to force him to rout quite soon. And you can kind of see there that with his very high defense skill, the fact that many of these units are being ensnared by the Vine Shield, he's actually going through several rounds where nothing is hitting him, which means that he's actually able to continue fighting back, even when his morale was reduced to the negatives because nothing hit him during that time frame. He was actually doing fine. But all good things must come to an end eventually, and eventually he gets scratched when his morale is low enough to allow him to fail a morale check, and so he runs away. But yeah, he did a bunch of damage. He killed, you know, like what, maybe 2,000 gold? Yeah, around 2,000 gold of stuff, maybe a little less than that, like 1,800. Burned through a bunch of gems, and lost nothing in the process. And then this raiding party is successful. He Pythium pulls away his stuff, and I'm able to take the throne, losing just a couple of blind fighters in the process. Some unexpected events, more wild growth stuff. Oh, this is nice. A bunch of free gems, a little bit of free gold. And I lose a little bit of Dominion and gold. So nothing particularly exciting. I'm going to be moving up this squad over here in order to intercept these hydras. My hope is that my sacreds are going to be able to hold the line against his hydras. These guys here are fully amphibious, so they're going to have no attack penalties. And with their life drain attacks, I figure that they should be able to do okay. This guy here, I don't remember why I have him doing what he's doing. Seems kind of dumb. I hope I rescripted him in the actual game, but if not, it's not a huge deal. Here I'm trying once again to use my water elementals. This time I'm bringing a full complement of 4 water elemental summoners, and I'm also bringing a little bit of additional evocation. And yeah, I'm also bringing just a line of these guys, so they should have no trouble taking on the PD, and if I get lucky I can even kill some hydras. And then here, I'm basically cutting off the hydras from going up over here, because I do not want to have to worry about protecting this fort. For now, or this throne, I should say. So for now, they're still just, patrolling, hanging out. The unrest here is almost certainly a sign that there is an unrest increasing sight, but most of the good ones that increase unrest are in blood, and I don't have any blood mages, so I won't be able to find them. But it's not a huge deal. I'm still going to need to fort this, in spite of the fact that the unrest is going to prevent me from recruiting anything here, just in order to protect the throne. And then, yeah, Pythium, given that he just hasn't attacked me with anything, he's just playing no risk at all, and I'm continuing to whittle him down, and more importantly, I'm continuing to just roll over his provinces here. It's definitely a sign that he's demoralized, and I'm soon going to be able to demoralize him much further with the deployment of my first golem, Dancer. So, golems, their gear is a little bit different. As I mentioned, the Flesh Eater is the big thing. So this is going to be able of making him last past the turn limit, thanks to his Berserker. And then the second big thing is this Shroud giving him my Bless. So between the Iron Skin effect from the Iron Face and the Earth Bless, or the Earth 9 Bless, he has very high protection. So I don't need to worry too much about him actually dying. His attack and defense stats are... they're going to be a little bit better than they show here because they're not going to have the -3 from darkness, but they're still profoundly unimpressive. Golems have a base attack and defense of 3. So yeah, definitely not actually going to be hitting things very often. But with the Firebrand's area of effect thing, he should still be able to chop through those hydras okay. And more importantly, he's just not going to be taking very much damage in return. Part of that is the fact that his protection is, of course, so insanely high, but part of that is also the fact that he's going to be able to cast Astral Shield and Body Ethereal. So Astral Shield is going to make anything that is attacking him make a morale check or make a magic resistance check or become paralyzed, and then Body Ethereal is going to make 3/4 of those attacks miss. So yeah, he's going to be extremely resilient, and most importantly, he is never going to run away. So given that I've captured all the territory around these hydras, because the hydras are almost certainly going to rout first, even if he didn't have this Firebrand, by teleporting him on top of this group, I can basically assure that I'm going to chew through all of these hydras and destroy Pythium's largest army. And yeah, that's the turn. This is turn 43 of I Equipped My Heavy Crossbow. In addition to receiving an additional Flesh Eater from Gath, having sent him gems to pay for it, my first Flesh Eater attack was a massive success. So, yeah. It's worth noting that everything that routes here is dead, because I already owned all the provinces surrounding it, and Pythium did not make any magic phase attacks of his own. But even discounting that, the Golem actually does kill a large number of the things in battle. So you can see here that those guys went gray. They just got paralyzed by his Astral Shield, and they successfully made the Golem go berserk. Like the Tomb Oracles, the Golem has no encumbrance, so his fatigue is not going to get any higher. In fact, it's going to go down because of the reinvigoration that he gets from my Bless. So, low chance of critical hits because he's fatigue neutral. And with both the Berserker thing making him crazy and his native morale 50 on account of being mindless, he, yeah. He has no chance of routing whatsoever. And with his quickness making him attack twice every round, and his 2 weapons, he's able to chop through these guys, even with his relatively low attack and defense score. Berserker also helps his attack, by the way, sets it up to 14, and many of these guys are paralyzed, so once they're paralyzed they have 0 attack and defense, which means that even the Golem can hit them. So with this, I killed thousands of gold with Pythium stuff. This was a massive win, and it actually ends up being the thing that breaks Pythium's back. Like, he just totally gives up after this fight. I find yet more magic sites, which is nice. I get some fire, earth, water. This is a province that I captured from Pythium and felt confident enough to site search. And then I found an additional site over here, Corpse Candle March, that gives me more water and death gems. My sepulchrals take this province over here because Arco doesn't want it, it seems. Or at least he's not able to divert the troops to actually take it. I'm able to retake this province from the PD. I managed to lose one of my Tritons, which is good. Here, my Raptors continue their raiding unabated. They are able to take this province, similarly with just a small amount of PD on it. Here in Jintmark, his little raiding party of Hydra hatchlings is successful, but I'm going to be able to cut it off with my own units over here. Just a couple fire elementals should be able to take this on with no trouble, and I'm resuming my siege of Ivermark with my SC. In Dunster, over here, my SC is continuing to raid deeper into Pythium's territory. The Well of Pestilence means that I don't want to be leaving too many of my guys there, because it's going to cause a disease effect, but because this guy's undead, he doesn't need to worry about disease at all. This big old blob of crossbows I am not worried whatsoever about with my Tomb Oracle. He is actually wearing a silver hauberk, which gives protection from arrows. He is actually custom built in order to fight, in order to go into a big squad of crossbows. Because crossbows deal armor-piercing damage, it is possible for them to actually kill SCs that aren't properly equipped to fight them. I actually managed to do that by accident when someone sent an Ice Devil SC against a large number of crossbowmen in another game, so I'm going to make sure that this guy has an air shield of his own in order to give him protection against that. So, no silly losses here. He has an open misc slot because I didn't feel like giving him another regen ring, because I've come to realize that my guys just aren't being whittled down by Pythium's forces, and yeah. His charcoal shield here is to give him a fire shield of his own in order to help him clear out skeleton spam more quickly, just so he doesn't get stalled out. And he also has an additional attack in order to help him, again, just chew through enemy armies more quickly. This is actually a pretty nice province because of its these two sites here, giving it a large amount of additional gold and gems. But until I have a fort here, I'm not going to be taking advantage of that, and given that I'm going to be starting to go for thrones, those are going to be the places where I'll be wanting to spend my money forting up. Even though I am getting a fair amount of additional income off of all of these nice Pythian provinces that I'm taking. Here in Winter Peaks, Pythium tried to break out, and we have an actual army versus army fight. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so Pythium does actually not, or yeah, I can't really tell if he's using skirmish formation or not. I know that he is here, but these guys are way at the back, and where you want to use skirmish formation is the squads you have further forward. These guys are in line formation, which I guess is okay. This guy here is not sufficiently high level. Aha, this guy here can cast flaming arrows. Okay, so he's got a bunch of flaming crossbows. I have a lot fewer flaming crossbows. So just looking at the armies, it's clear that Pythium has a lot more stuff, but it's also soon going to become clear that my stuff is much better. So I have a lot of Horde of Skeletons casters over here. Unfortunately, my Horde of Skeletons casters here are very close to the rest of my guys, which means that his crossbow fire is, yeah, it takes out some of my mages right off the bat. So that's unfortunate. So, as with all of my armies, I'm summoning a fair few elementals. The initial salvos definitely seem to be favoring Pythium just because he has so many more crossbowmen and because he was able to get his flaming arrows off on round 1. However, these guys here are being buffed up. So they've got their Bless increasing their HP and giving them reinvigoration and so on. They've also got Legions of Steel put on them, which increases their protection even further. So these guys are incredibly tanky, and with Strength of Giants, they're also going to be relatively hard-hitting, and they have decent attack and defense scores as well. These guys here are, I think, buffed up as well. No, they're just naturally that resilient. But yeah, these guys here with 26 protection, 22 HP, and regeneration. They're a lot sturdier than Pythium's frontliners here, which are basically just chaff. Like these guys here are pretty good, limiting Solaris, especially since they have fire resistance. And they've also got some flaming javelins. So you can see here, just because he has got such a huge blob of crossbows, he is able to actually do some damage to my guys. So the Holy Pyre thing here, which this guy's Flambeau is letting him cast, is letting him basically do a little bit of light evocation. It doesn't deal a huge amount of damage, because these guys are not undead or demons. And with his waves of crossbow fire, he's able to chew through many of the skeletons, which I've reanimated. However, that portion of the front line is at least being replenished from additional Horde of Skeletons casts. And here, my elementals are getting into the mix, and as you can see, the earth elementals are trampling right over this front line, so they're doing a large amount of damage. And then my own elite mercenaries here are, of course, chewing through the things that they are hitting. So even though he still has a massively superior backline with just this massive number of crossbows, once battle is joined over here between their melee units, it's showing that his is quickly collapsing, while my front line is advancing forward steadily. And you saw right there that these guys, even when they do get hit by the flaming crossbows, they just don't take a lot of damage from them. So with his front line gone, he's left with only these relatively low morale crossbowmen. And while they're quite effective offensively, these are relatively unarmored crossbowmen, which is actually usually what you want on account of their lowered resource cost. However, it also means that when they get hit by my own crossbowmen shooting back, they get taken down pretty quickly. And between the regular rain of crossbow bolts firing down on his guys, the complete collapse of his front line, and the advancement of my own, the remainder of Pythium's army is finally routed. So, not only am I able to beat him with my SCs, which he just simply does not have an answer for, even when we get down to conventional battles of army versus army, because I have vastly superior mage support, with 9 Alchemists, 6 Reanimators, and a Chthonian Necromancer, against his just Flaming Arrows casts. Even when he brings a lot more guys, I just have a lot more magic on my side, which is, lets me win this fight quite handily. Yeah, so he outnumbered me 2-to-1 in terms of troops, but I outnumbered him much more than that in terms of mages. So I did definitely take some losses here. The positioning of the Reanimators wasn't great, probably. It meant that I lost some mages I didn't really need to. But I definitely came out ahead in terms of both gold and in terms of keeping the province, and many of the crossbowmen routed outside of the fort, so even though I wasn't breaking it down to begin with, I did after this. So here his little squad of Hydras does retake one of the provinces that I raided from him, but in a different province here, I'm able to hold off his Hydra hatchlings with my own undead and skeletons. And then, yeah, so I killed some of his Hydras, and then I'm going to be able to retake this quickly as well. So he basically finally started raiding back by deploying little squads, but he didn't do that nearly enough, and he did it much too late. He already lost his big old death ball over here to Dancer. He lost his large army of crossbows over here, and I'm continuing to just roll through his provinces. So I raid another one there, raid another one there. And yeah, so I get a bad event here. I'm going to just retake this province here real quick. All these guys still have basically fire gems, or all these guys have fire gems basically in anticipation of his assassin, and also to fend off a large army of Hydras once I can figure out the proper position in order to fend off Howl. And in the meantime, I am bringing over yet more crossbows over here to reinforce this army on top of this fort in order to help me break through it more quickly. But given that I've already shown that I can beat him army to army, I don't expect too much trouble. And if he does try to take on this fort once again, I know that I'm going to win. In the meantime, my SCs are continuing to push forward deeper into his territory, basically just conquering Pythium at this point. And here my raiding parties are going to be capturing more of his territory, and given that he can't effectively respond to the armies and SCs moving behind it, the territory that I'm able to raid, I'm actually able to keep. Furthermore, I'm advancing onto the thrones that I'm going to need to win, since I'll be able to take this relatively easily once I get my SCs in place. Because this province here has a lab, I'm going to cast Teleport here onto Moonsea to finally take out the last of Pythium's amphibious-based invasion, so I will have retaken my little lake entirely. Yeah, I'm basically just winning on all fronts against Pythium. This is full spectrum dominance. I'm winning with my SCs, I'm winning with my armies, and Pythium has essentially given up, and just from what we can tell by his not attacking back into my forces. So things are looking very well. Now that Gath has taken on, or has finally finished conquering Tianqi, we can expect him to start to invade me as well. However, I am constructing an additional golem. I do have an additional axe for that golem in order to give it Berserker. So I'm actually quite ready to start fighting back against Gath when he invades me. And as you can see here, I already have my own forces already in place, and I'm awakening an additional 2 Morkel here, so that I have basically an SC to go on this front. This 2 Morkel over here is stealthed up with his Shade Mail Halberd gun, and I'm basically sending him up north over here. I'm basically starting to march onto the thrones that I need in order to actually win. So I know that I'm going to be getting most of what I need from Pythium over here, but just in order to make things go more quickly, I see that Arcocephaly actually doesn't have either of these two things forted. This one here doesn't even have much in the way of province defense, and doesn't even have a fort under construction. So I might be able to just sneak my way into an early victory if I'm able to get my Tomb Oracles onto his territory. So I'm going to basically prepare for war against Arcocephaly, who I imagine is going to finish his long and difficult conquest of Ulm shortly. Given that Pythium is basically just falling back on all fronts, I am basically just getting ready to fight everyone else as well. And that's the turn.